Measurement of length. In Latin, centum means 100. We see this used in today's English. So century is 100 years. Cent is 1/100th of a dollar. And in maths, when we take a fraction of something, we multiply. So 1/100th multiplied by a dollar is 0.01 of a dollar, which we call 1 cent. And we have centimeter. Centimeter is 1/100th of a meter. So that equals 1/100th multiplied by 1 meter is 0.01 of a meter, which is 1 centimeter. In Latin, milli means 1,000. We also see this used. We have millennium, means 1,000 years. We have millionaire, someone with 1 million euro. And we have millimeters, 1,000th of a meter. Okay, so a meter is broken up into 1,000 parts called millimeters. So 1,000th of a meter, 1 over 1,000 multiplied by 1 meter is 0.001 meters, is 1 millimeter. Then in Greek, kiloa means 1,000. The French turned this into kilo. So kilo also means 1,000. So with kilograms, 1,000 grams equals 1 kilogram used to measure weight. We have kilowatts, 1,000 watts equals 1 kilowatt used to measure electricity. And we have kilometers, 1,000 meters equals 1 kilometer used to measure long distance. Now when you're measuring centimeters, we usually use a ruler. And the thing to remember here is to always measure from 0. Some people by accident measure from the beginning of the ruler. And our centimeters here are shown 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If you look between 6 and 7, that's the width of 1 centimeter. And in between 6 and 7, it's broken up then into 10 equal parts. And those little parts are called a millimeter. Now, what sort of things do we measure in centimeters? So the length of a pencil case or the height of a bottle of water. What sort of things do we measure in millimeters? Well, the width of a shoelace or the width of the nail on your little finger. Now, some things are then too big to use centimeters, and we use then a meter or a meter stick. So a meter stick is 1 meter equals 100 centimeters, usually found in the science lab. Now, to give you some perspective of what a meter looks like, a door in your house is usually 2 meters in height. Okay, so what sort of things do we measure in meters? Well, maybe the width of a tennis court would be good to measure in meters, or the distance a golf ball travels would be measured in meters. Now, that could be maybe 300 meters. Now, if you go a distance further than that, it might be more beneficial to measure in kilometers. Okay, so in kilometers, that's kilo, 1,000 meters. So if you think of the M1 from Dundalk to Dublin, it's roughly 81 kilometers. So that'll give you some idea. Or if you look at this yellow sign from a headland in New Zealand, it shows you that, well, Australia is the country next to New Zealand, so Sydney is 2,000 kilometers away. Tokyo is further, it's 9,567 kilometers away. And then if you come closer to where we are, London is 18,958 kilometers away. So those kind of distances are easy to find now using Google Maps. Now what we actually need to know is this table. We need to know this off by heart, that 1 centimeter is 10 millimeters, 1 meter is 100 centimeters, cent for 100, and 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters. So that's what we need to know. And we need to be able to convert between different units of measurement. So let's have a look at a conversion here. I'm going to start with 5 million millimeters. Now, it then equals actually 500,000 centimeters, or I could convert it to meters and it's 5,000 meters, or the same distance is actually 5 kilometers. So 5 million millimeters is the same as 5 kilometers. Now, if I look at this in more detail, to make the units bigger, so say meters to kilometers, what we're actually doing there is dividing. So look here, I have 5 million millimeters. Divide that by 10 to turn it into centimeters, okay, which is 500,000 centimeters. Take those 500,000 centimeters and divide by 100, 100, to make it into 5,000 meters. Divide those 5,000 meters by 1,000, a kilo, to make it then into 5 kilometers. If I'm looking to move the other direction, in other words, to make the units smaller, we actually multiply. So if I take these 5 kilometers and I want to make it into meters, I multiply by the kilo, the 1,000. Multiply by that, I get 5,000 meters. If I want to take those 5,000 meters and change them into centimeters, I multiply by 100. Or if I want to take those 500,000 centimeters and turn them into millimeters, well, there's 10 millimeters in a centimeter. I multiply by 10 and I get back to my 5 million millimeters. So the sort of questions that come up for you are like this, conversions. Example 1, convert the following measurement into the given unit of measure, 70 millimeters into centimeters. So what we're doing here, millimeters into centimeters, the unit is getting bigger, so we're going to be dividing ultimately, dividing. Now what do I know about millimeters and centimeters? I know that 1 centimeter is 10 millimeters, okay? But if I look at this here, my units are not the same. I don't have them lined up properly. And it's better to keep the units in the same order as the question. So I'm going to flip that. Instead of saying 1 centimeter equals 10 millimeters, I'm going to say 10 millimeters equals 1 centimeter. And just keep my units in the same order. Now I know that 10 millimeters is 1 centimeter. So now I can figure out, well, what's 1 millimeter? 1 millimeter would be divide by 10. So divide the 1 centimeter by 10. So 1 millimeter is 1/10 of a centimeter. So now I can figure out, well, what's 70 millimeters? Multiply by 70. So 70 times 1/10, use your calculator, no problem. So the answer is 7. Now look at ultimately what you did though. You took the 70 millimeters and you divided by 10 because you know that there's 10 millimeters in 1 centimeter. Okay, so that would be your shortcut. Right, example 2, convert the following measurement into the given unit of measure, 42,000 centimeters equals how many kilometers? Okay, well we don't know centimeters to kilometers, so not from our table. So we're going to have to use 2 steps. First step, convert centimeters to meters. Second step, convert meters to kilometers. So step 1, 42,000 centimeters equals how many meters? Well, first thing I notice is I'm making my units bigger, so I'm going to be dividing. And the second thing that I know is that I have 100 centimeters in a meter. Okay, so here I have 100 centimeters equals a meter, so I can easily find, well, what's 1 centimeter? So divide by 100. Okay, so 1 centimeter is 100th of a meter. So then what's 42,000 centimeters? Multiply by 42,000. Do that on your calculator and you get 420 meters. So that's step 1, okay, 420 meters. Now I'm going to have to take that 420 meters and bring it into step 2. So step 2, change those meters into kilometers. Okay. So again, we're going from meters to kilometers. We're making the unit bigger, so we'll be dividing. What do I know about meters and kilometers? I know that there's 1,000 meters in 1 kilometer. Okay, so if I know there's 1,000 meters in a kilometer, then 1 meter is divide by 1,000. If I know what 1 meter is, then I can tell what 420 meters is by multiplying by 420. And do that on your calculator and you'll figure that 420 meters equals 0.42 of a kilometer. So there's your answer, 0.42 of a kilometer. Now let's look at ultimately what have we done. In step 1, ultimately, we divide it by 1,000. And that's because, or sorry, divide it by 100. And that's because we know there's 100 centimeters in a meter. Then in step 2, ultimately what we did was we divided by 1,000. And that's because we know there's 1,000 meters in a kilometer. So if you want a shortcut here, what you would do is take your 42,000, divide by 100 to change to meters, divide by 1,000 to change to kilometers, and you get 0.42 of a kilometer. Okay. So example 3, convert the following measurement into the given unit of measure. 9.4 kilometers equals how many meters? Okay, so this time you can see that kilometers to meters, we're actually making the unit smaller. So to make the unit smaller, we multiply. I know that seems unusual. To make something smaller, you multiply. So just try and get that into your head. Bigger, divide, smaller, multiply. Okay, what do I know about kilometers and meters? I know that 1 kilometer equals 1,000 meters. Keep your units in the proper order. So if 1 kilometer equals 1,000 meters, well, what's 9.4 kilometers? Just multiply by 9.4. So those ones are a little bit easier. Ultimately, what have I done? I've just multiplied by 1,000. Okay, so there's a nice shortcut there. Just multiply by 1,000. Example 4. Convert the following measurement into the given unit of measure. 35 meters is how many millimeters? Now again, we don't know meters to millimeters, so we'll use 2 steps. First, convert meters to centimeters, then centimeters to millimeters. Okay. Now step 1, 35 meters is how many centimeters? Now meters to centimeters, you're making the unit smaller, so you're going to be ultimately multiplying. What do we know about meters and centimeters? We know that 1 meter equals 100 centimeters. If I know that 1 meter equals 100 centimeters, well, how many is 35 meters? So let's multiply by 35. So you can see we're multiplying there. Okay, so do that on your calculator. 35 meters equals 3,500 centimeters. Okay, so I know that the 35 meters equals 3,500 centimeters, but I have to take those centimeters now and make them into millimeters for step 2. Okay, again, centimeters to millimeters, making it smaller, which means we're going to be multiplying. And what do I know about centimeters and millimeters? I know that in 1 centimeter I have 10 millimeters. Okay, so 1 centimeter equals 10 millimeters. Well then, how many is 3,500 centimeters? Multiply by 3,500 centimeters. Okay, and what we get there on our calculator, multiply by 10 or just add a 0 on to your 3,500. I have 35,000 millimeters. Okay, so that is your answer. Right, again, let's look at ultimately what have we done. Ultimately, we took the 35 meters and multiplied by 100 to make 3,500 centimeters. So changing to centimeters, multiply by 100. Ultimately, what did we do in the second part of the question? We multiplied by 10 because we were changing into the millimeters, and we know that there's 10 millimeters in a centimeter. Okay, so for a shortcut here, you would take the 35, multiply by 100 to change into centimeters, multiply by 10 to make into the millimeters, and you would have 35,000 millimeters. Okay.